Thank you, Linda, for inviting me to speak at the 33rd Annual Professional Women Network International Conference. It is truly my honor to be here with you all this evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. By a show of hands, can I see who served in one of our armed forces? And perhaps you have parents, spouses, even children that have served, right? Yes. Thank you all so much for your service. The key to success rests in people like us, who embody the spirit of greatness by saying, yes, I can, and you can too. Thank you all for giving your time, energy, and dedication to PWN. We meet and learn from champions every day. I've learned that to be a champion, we must think like a champion, because champions think differently than everyone else. We approach our work and our life with a different mindset and a belief system that separates us from the pack. First, champions expect to win. When we walk on the court, field, into a meeting or a classroom, we expect to win. In fact, we're surprised when we don't win. We expect success, and our positive beliefs lead to positive actions and outcomes. We win in our minds first, and then we win in the minds and hearts of our customers. Second, champions celebrate the small wins. By celebrating the small wins, champions gain the confidence to go after the big wins. Big wins and big success happen through the accumulation of many small victories. This doesn't mean the champions become complacent, but rather with the right kind of motivation, celebration, and reinforcement, champions work harder, practice more, and believe that we can do greater things. Third, champions don't make excuses when we don't win. We don't focus on the faults of others. Instead, we focus on what we can do better. We see our mistakes and defeats as opportunities for growth. As a result, we become stronger, wiser, and better. Fourth, champions focus on what we get to do, not on what we have to do. We see our life and work as a gift, not as an obligation. We know that if we want to achieve a certain outcome, we must commit to and appreciate the process. We may not love every step and every minute of our journey, but our attitude will help us develop our skill. And fifth, champions believe we will experience more wins in the future. Our faith is greater than our fear. Our positive energy is greater than the chorus of negativity. Our certainty is greater than all the doubt. Our passion and purpose are greater than our challenges. In spite of our situations, champions believe our best days are ahead of us and not behind us. Now, if you don't think that you have what it takes to be a champion, please think again, because champions, they are not born. Champions are shaped and molded. We can develop our mindset and the mindset of our leadership teams with the right thinking, beliefs, and expectations that lead to powerful actions and successful endeavors. So this evening, I'll now share how we can become champions in the most challenging of circumstances, because the professional woman, professional men and women, are always prepared. So are we ready? A doctor once commented to me that we all have an expiration date, but we just don't know when it is. Would it surprise you to learn that there are many billions of dollars, mostly from dormant accounts in financial institutions? My mother passed away completely unexpected and quite suddenly earlier this year. And despite the fact that she had a valid, updated, and properly executed will and trust, all of her assets were not properly documented and recorded within those documents. Yeah. As the executor of her estate, personal representative, and trustee of her trust, I learned a lot of valuable information that hopefully will help you find all of your treasure, whether your treasure be assets, financial, and or sentimental in nature. Finding your treasure without the hunt. Now, it's very important to me that everyone in attendance this evening gets out of our time together what you came to hear. So if I don't address something that you have a question about, I'll be here throughout the whole conference, and I'd love to speak with you. Now, most parents expect their children to do better and achieve more in life than they did. Any assets our parents have should go where they desire. And so wishing to respect my mother's hard-earned savings and knowing that she never intended for her money to go into those multi-billion-dollar state coffers of unclaimed funds, I created the asset map to help others, so you'll have an easier time locating all the information while simultaneously honoring your loved one's wishes. The asset map is a straightforward system that teaches people how to accurately identify and consolidate all essential documents, key information, and assets into an easy and usable reference resource. It's called the asset map because it contains all the critical documents and key information pertaining to our assets and or the location of where the originals are kept if you choose to put photocopies in your asset map and store the originals separately in a safe deposit box, as an example. This resource can then be repeatedly referenced by the person who created it, as well as our survivors needing easy access to all key and valuable information. Now, in addition to creating the asset map for us personally, and perhaps our aging parents, a separate one should also be created by all entrepreneurs, sole practitioners, and even small companies. Think of it as a will for your business. Now, creating your asset map will help in your communications with your financial planner, your estate attorney, your CPA, as well as other professionals. Your asset map doesn't replace the need for you to have these professionals as part of your resource team. It does, however, prepare you to have productive communications with them. These experts will appreciate your asset map, and it will save all of you time and will personally save you a lot of money. Now, to begin, let's first learn about everything that must be done after the death of a loved one. In the process to attending to my mother's personal affairs, I created these checklists, and they're the first set of handouts in the binders. They have and are serving me well, but I need to offer as a disclaimer that I'm not an estate attorney. I'm a professional woman, a layperson when it comes to estate matters, who has experienced the sudden loss of my mother firsthand. I've learned a lot of valuable, useful information, and I've had a number of aha type of moments, and I wanted to share those to hopefully provide valuable insights in the hopes that it will comfort you as you mourn the loss of your loved one. Now, perhaps these checklists will simplify what can be a daunting process. Within these checklists, the areas to address are not numbered. I've put them in the order that makes sense to me. However, the order in which each person or family needs to address them is unique to their particular set of circumstances. So consider using these lists as a guide for everything that must be done and addressed when a loved one passes away. So here you have 4 checklists. Number 1 is immediately on day 1 and as soon as possible. Number 2 is week 1. Number 3 is month 1 and ongoing. And number 4, ongoing plus 3 years. On checklist number 1, immediately on day 1 and as soon as possible, there are 17 areas to address. On number 2, week 1, there are 16 areas to address. And please notice that 10 address areas that are contained on our asset maps. On number 3, month 1 and ongoing, there are 15 areas to address. And please note here, another 10 areas are easier to address with your asset map. There are 2 areas that are noted with a double asterisk. And these are often overlooked, yet very, very important. On number 4, ongoing plus 3 years, there are 5 helpful websites covering areas such as researching if your loved one had a safe deposit box and finding unclaimed assets. Documents are commonly put into 4 categories: assets, liabilities, medical, and personal. So when thinking about assets, please consider all 34 of the following types of documents that are listed alphabetically on your checklist. Not everything from the list will apply to you, so please use the ones that do and set aside the rest. Once you create your asset map, you'll have it to use as a personal reference. It will be quite helpful to have this insight into your financial picture and your total assets. And from here, when you consider any liabilities, you can also determine your net worth. The peace of mind that comes from having created my own personal asset map, as well as one for my organization, Fulfill Your Destiny, is truly priceless. And this is my wish for all of you too. In designing the asset map, I have the following 12 takeaways. Number 1, your asset map is as unique as you are. There's no right or wrong way to put it together as long as you consider all of your assets. Number 2, I recommend choosing a 3-ring binder, much like what you have, and getting document protectors that you'll use to put all of your collected critical documents and key information into. Although our society has become very digitally oriented, I've learned from personal experience that we must have original documents with original signatures when attending to estate matters. You can organize your documents alphabetically, chronologically, relevance by subject matter, or in any other order that makes the most sense to you. You'll just want to be able to access the information easily, and you'll want to have it make sense to your survivors. Now, if you prefer to keep your original documents in another location, like we mentioned, a safe deposit box, you can make a photocopy of any of these documents and include them here in your asset map with a note identifying where the originals are kept. And this is why it's called the asset map. Number 3, if you choose to use a safe deposit box, consider including instructions with the location of this box, the box number, and the location of the keys in your asset map. You may wish to even include a set of keys right here in your asset map as well. Number 4, once you've created it, remember to update it as your assets change. Your asset map is not a one-and-done system. It's an invaluable resource when kept relevant. At a minimum, you'll want to review it annually. And if you review it only one time per year, you might want to do it at the beginning of the year or perhaps in April when our federal taxes are due. Because if we pick a particular month and target a time frame, we're much more likely to do it and keep it up to date and keep it relevant. The more up to date that we keep it, the more user-friendly it will be for us as a resource, and then for our loved ones. Number 5, when creating or updating your will, consider leaving a specific dollar amount versus a percentage to your desired recipients. A specific dollar amount is clear, and a percentage can vary depending on the value of the assets on the date used for the calculation. Now, to illustrate this point as an example, if you have children, consider allocating a specific dollar amount to each one. It can be the same amount or different, versus a percentage to each child. Having the specific dollar amount stated can avoid potential misunderstandings and possibly even hurt feelings among the recipients. When thinking about your bank accounts, consider that without a hard copy statement, as you may be getting statements online, how will your survivors access your accounts? If you're accessing your accounts solely online, you've probably changed your password a number of times. So do your survivors know the passwords and have the websites on where to go? So takeaway number 6, having a hard copy statement from any and all of your bank accounts answers these questions. When reviewing your hard copy account statements, verify that there's a payable on death, a POD, that's identified. Some statements have them identified right on the statements. Some of them have them identified at the bank, and they don't print out on the statements, so we want to check with each bank. Ensure that the POD and or beneficiary information is reflected. This is takeaway number 7. And reflected accurately and documented appropriately on any and all of your bank accounts. It's not as necessary if your bank accounts are joint accounts. However, there's always a chance, sad to say, that couples and joint account holders could pass away together through a tragic accident. So it's always best to be prepared. Number 8, in most cases, having a POD or beneficiary identified will keep those accounts out of probate as they will pass directly to the intended beneficiary. So now let's share how your asset map comes to life. Provided here is my example of all the critical documents and key information that I've included in my asset map by thoroughly reviewing the asset list provided on your handouts. And I'm also happy to share how asset maps can look for your business, and provided here as well is for my organization, Fulfill Your Destiny. I've shared these examples as a starting point for you. Recall that your asset map is unique, so it will most likely have some of the same categories along with many others. Again, begin by reviewing the complete list of assets listed, the 34 items, and just be as thorough and complete as possible. Takeaway number 9. Remember that one of the goals of your asset map is to communicate all of your critical information to your loved ones after you've passed and you're no longer able to answer any questions for them. My mother, who I now refer to as Angel Renee, she passed away in March. She and I had booked reservations to go on a vacation in June, just 2 months ago, where she was going to review some of her critical documents with me. To give you a little deeper information, I reside in Tampa, Florida. My mother lived in Massachusetts in the home that I grew up in. And we had our weekly Sunday evening 5 o'clock phone calls. And I called my mom on March 1st at 5:05 p.m., say, and she didn't answer the phone. And right then and there, I had a sick feeling in my stomach. But yet, wanting to give benefit of the doubt and not wanting to go there. But she had missed those phone calls over many years, I could count them on one hand, and then it was never missing. It was just delayed. She'd been out grocery shopping. March 1st in Massachusetts, there was 6 feet of ice, or snow and ice. So given the fact that we had a standing appointment and the weather was so terrible, where would my mother be? Which is where that sick feeling came from. So I left a nice message, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And I laid in bed that night and couldn't sleep. And at 8 a.m. on March 2nd, I called again. Same thing, I got an answering machine, right? Voicemail. So I told my husband, I'd already told him the night before, but so we went on the computer and we started doing an internet search to see if the phone lines were down. With all that ice, it's possible, right? And I had a moment of hope because we found that the Walmart in my town was publicizing that, hooray, we're back online. Our phone lines have been down because of all the ice. So I thought, all right, this is what it is. So I ran out for an hour for a quick appointment, and I came back, and my husband had said, I got in touch with an operator, and she verified that the line is good. No one is answering. So I called the only number of anybody that I knew in the area. I happened to be for a gentleman that was working with my mom. He's a combination handyman. He happens to clean out people's homes, estates. My father had passed away in 2008. My mom was still attending to some of those details, so he worked for her. And he mentioned he had a key. Would you like me to go drive over and take a look? Yes, I would. Question number 2 was, do you want me to call the police and take a police escort? And I said, not unless you want to, because my mom trusted you with the key, so you don't need a police escort as far as I'm concerned. And he said, all right, it'll take me about 40 minutes, and I'll call you. And he did, and at about 10:20 on Monday, March 2nd, I'm sorry to inform you, I found your mother, and I hope this is all right, we're not eating. I found your mother in the shower with the shower water running, okay? So it took me a while to track down, because it's very important to me to, I don't know why, but I was obsessed with knowing when my mother passed, okay? Because it was running with cold water, right? Well, I did a lot of research, and I hope you can tell from the checklists and the presentation that there was a lot of thought put into it and the life experience that I've gone through to impart, hopefully, valuable information to you all. But I was able to determine that the preceding Wednesday, she missed an appointment. So that afternoon, and she started with a hot shower, hot water ran out, and then for all of Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, cold water. God bless my mother. She had the foresight to have a massive coronary, the widowmaker heart attack that is typically of a man, and to fall, slide really, because she was gone before she ever came down. So she didn't feel a thing, no suffering, thank goodness. But she had the foresight to not plug the drain. So there was no water damage. And then the cold water pouring on top of her did wonders to preserve a body, right? Yeah. So I hope it wasn't too, it's honest, but it took me several days to process and get over the nausea of all that, okay? So I will mention to you that I learned a lot of things about heart attacks and about that type of heart attack. My mom had a lower blood pressure a few years back, and then of late she kept telling me her blood pressure was high. She'd go to Walgreens, do the cuff thing, right? Now my mother, she had been a flight attendant with United until the age of 72. Right? And she retired in 2012 from being a flight attendant, right? But she had not been to a doctor in 20 years, okay? So my mother probably had undiagnosed hypertension, and she may have had high cholesterol. She may have had a lot of, issues that she was totally unaware of, and she looked vital, healthy. She looked great. Had to have done that, and that's a physical job, right? Yeah. So what saddens me the most, and this is going to sound in a way funny, but really when I put it all in perspective, what saddens me the very most about my mother's passing so suddenly is that she didn't have her own asset map, because I hadn't created it yet. And so I don't think she knew what she had and what she was financially worth. And had she known, I believe she would have had other choices available to her, and she may have lived her life completely differently. And so a significant reason why we all ought to assemble our asset maps today, I'll give us till Monday, is that it really could change for the better how we're living our lives. Now I want to foot stomp. One of the points is that I had made in my takeaways. Actually, I'm going to do two because they were so instrumental in my journey. With my mom, the gentleman, Ken is his name, that came in, he went around the home and assembled anything that looked important paper-wise, because he knew that all these people now would be coming in the home, police, medical examiners, different things. And the police actually talked to me because they said her will is on like the daybed, set out, and her trust document is set out. And that's kind of odd, right? Could be odd, right? My mother was in the process of updating things, so it wasn't completely odd for her, but it's a little strange. It makes the hairs go up on the police, right? Can't blame them for that. So I share that because I knew nothing about my mother's financial situation. Well, I'll say none of the specifics, because actually she didn't know all that much either, because she would have been living her life differently, okay? That's why I say this. So I started from ground zero, right? But she had put me on as a joint account holder to her credit union account. And this is why I bring this up, because I had gotten her checkbook mailed to me from the guy, Ken, right? He mailed all the important paperwork that he found. This is how we started, because I'm in Tampa, Florida. I can't fly up to Massachusetts right now in the blizzard, right? But I have to get to work, right? And so learning that I was a joint account holder, I called that financial institution. And because I'm a joint account holder, they can talk to me. This is the foot stomp. If this is ever you, ask them two questions. What are the HCH transfers that are coming in? Because these are all the assets, if you will, and all the other institutions that need to be notified about a passing, right? And then equally to that, what are all the HCHs going out? The debts. They got to be notified too, and possibly even paid, and I'll get to that here in a second. And I want to talk about safe deposit boxes for a second. I always suspected that my mom had one. She never told me whether she did or she didn't. It just didn't come up in conversation. So in the stuff that Ken mailed to me, I found two receipts for safety deposit box. One from 1982. So I researched it. That bank was sold, transferred, changed names, closed, etc., right? But you got to research everything because you don't know. And I found one from 2010 from a bank that still exists today. And I contacted them, and they said, all right, we need an official death certificate, right? And we need your appointment as the personal representative. Some states have that, Massachusetts does, before we can do anything for you, pretty much. But we're going to turn this over to our estate division in Texas give us 45 days to get back to you, right? That ended up being a blessing because these appointments, and I should tell you I'm an only child, so this should be simple, right? But it still takes time in the courts. So the fact that they were researching 45 days, that helped me because my appointment, I set a date to go up to Massachusetts, which was May 9th. My appointment from the court came in on May 8th. Without that appointment, I could not have learned the exact location of the safe deposit box, and I certainly couldn't have gotten into it. And then as a follow-on to that, I thought I had keys, right, for it. Well, the keys I had looked nothing like a safe deposit box key because I found those the night before the appointment with the bank to access the safe deposit box. So these are part of my lessons learned, part of why I'm very passionate about sharing the information that's so far been presented this evening. So takeaway number 10 is out of respect for our loved ones and their efforts and intentions, please make your asset maps as soon as possible. If you wait until tomorrow, it may be too late, and you may never get the opportunity. Number 11 is that your asset map is not complete until you write a letter outlining your wishes and expanding upon anything that may not be completely clear in your will and or trust. This letter is also a great resource to use to communicate any and all passwords that you may have. And consider putting in your final wishes with respect to funeral, burial, cremation here as well. And one of the greatest gifts that we can give our surviving loved ones is the peace of mind that they are making the right decisions and honoring our final wishes. And the best way I know to do that is if we communicate those wishes ahead of time. So I recommend having this letter notarized and placing it in a sealed envelope right up front in your asset maps binder. If you're serving as the executor or personal representative of a loved one's estate, I have 5 tips specifically for those of us that are or will serve in this fiduciary role. And they're listed on the bottom of your second handout. Tip number 1 is that if you're appointed to serve as an executor of a will and estate, have access to at least, here it is, $10,000 in the first month. $10,000 in the first month, which will be reimbursed later through the estate, but this process takes several months. Examples of the expenses that I incurred during the first 30 days include funeral home costs and fees, motor vehicle excise tax, as my mother owned a car. Expenses with respect to her property must still be paid, even though she passed away. Airline tickets to fly up to Massachusetts, hotel accommodations, gas bill for the home that she was living in at the time, federal income taxes. Oh, my mother passed away in March, and she had a tax attorney prepare her taxes, but like most of us, when we owe Uncle Sam, we want to wait till April 15th to write that check, right? Well, my mother was a smart cookie, and she did that as well, so I needed to pay those federal taxes because they were for 2014 when she was alive. Same thing on state income taxes for those states that have that. And the retainer for the estate attorney. Now, you'll be able to get all valid costs and fees that you pay in support of attending to your loved ones' personal affairs back. However, like I said, this takes several months. So we always talk about emergency funds and nest eggs. This is another reason why to have one. Other expenses that I incurred and you may need to address include a loved one's last cell phone bill until it can be canceled, real estate tax bill, electric and cable bills, registry of motor vehicles, water and sewer utility bill, and a second estate attorney if your loved one owned property and or land in a different state, referred to as ancillary probate. Now, in order to be reimbursed, you must keep an accurate accounting of your costs and expenditures on behalf of your loved one's estate. And I recommend using an Excel spreadsheet with the following headings: name, of the entity the expense is being paid to, the description, the date that it was incurred, the amount, the method of payment, and the status. Has the expense been paid in full, or is it awaiting a credit card payment? And you'll want to begin tracking your expenses right away from the very beginning upon being notified of the loss of your loved one. They accumulate very, very quickly, and on the first day, when you get 3 of them, you think, I can remember this. Well, by day 5, when you have 10, you won't. And since you get reimbursed, you want to make sure you account for really every penny. Tip number 2 is I recommend not paying out any dollars that are due to beneficiaries, heirs, and others identified in the will and the trust until the estate attorney says that it's okay to do so. There's a number of costs that you're entitled to be reimbursed for first, prior to the distribution. And if the recipients are noted by a percentage, reimbursing the allowable expenses first affects that ultimate dollar amount that's available for the beneficiaries. And plus, if you've distributed everything or most everything, then there isn't this pool of money there from which to reimburse any additional fees as they may come in. And then us, as the executor, we're held personally liable for those expenses. Tip number 3 is should you choose to sell a loved one's house and or vehicle, you may qualify for a refund on any prepaid insurance premiums. Tip number 4 is if your loved one's house will be vacant, you may need to get a vacancy policy on the property. Some homeowners insurance companies will give you a 60-day grace period before canceling it outright. Now, vacancy policies are typically very expensive, and they don't provide refunds. So if this situation should apply, I recommend getting one for the shortest time period possible, and then renewing it if you need to, and the shortest period is usually 3 months. Tip number 5 is that when sorting through all of your loved one's personal possessions and making decisions on what to keep versus donating, gifting, selling, or discarding, consider asking yourself, does this item reflect a joint memory, a memory of your own versus your loved one's memory alone? As adult children, many of us have our own households with not much excess space. So I recommend keeping anything that is sentimental to you, and of course all the pictures that you'd like. As difficult as this process is, when you encounter items that do not resonate with you, and especially if you don't like them, I recommend letting them go in the best manner possible. And takeaway number 12, one final thought. Should you wish to get an idea of your own life expectancy, I found a very helpful lifespan calculator. It's only 13 questions long, and I believe it's very accurate. And it's found on the website listed on your handout. I found through personal experience with my mother that this calculator accurately predicted the age of her passing minus 2 months. Yep. When I completed it on her, it calculated that she would pass away at the age of 75, and she passed away 2 months before her 75th birthday. So the moral here is unless you pass away from an accident, it's our life choices that really determine how we'll fare. Lastly, I want to end this on 2 positive notes. And so I want to, really positive notes. I want to share Bishop Brent's passage on what is dying to offer a different, comforting perspective. A ship sails, and I still stand watching till she fades on the horizon. And someone at my side says, "She is gone." Gone where? Gone from my sight. That is all. She is just as large as when I saw her. The diminished size and total loss of sight, that's in me, not in her, in Angel Renee. And just at that moment, when someone at my side says, "She is gone," there are others who are watching her coming with excitement, and other voices take up a glad shout, "Here she comes." And that is dying. Before I close this evening, I'm thrilled to share with you that we're releasing Plaintiff 101, the black book of inside information your lawyer will want you to know, the book that I co-authored with my husband, and we're releasing it tomorrow evening. Now I'm going to ask you 3 questions. Please raise your hands if any of these questions apply to you. Would you like to be able to protect yourself financially? Please raise your hands. I would imagine every hand goes up. Yes. Do you want to know how the litigation process works? There might be. Yeah, right, cool. That's cool. Would you like to know the questions to ask when hiring an attorney? Awesome. Well, Plaintiff 101, you all are in luck. The Black Book of Inside Information your lawyer will want you to know shares the answers to these questions and so much more. It provides 50 takeaways and checklists, some of which can be implemented immediately to save you both time and money. This is only one of its kind, a groundbreaking book written from the combined efforts of an attorney and a plaintiff, each with his or her own perspectives. It gives you much of the information from inside a personal injury lawsuit, from a lawyer and the plaintiff who was successful in her litigation. I hope that you'll come visit me with my book tomorrow evening and take a look. And as an added incentive for the first 25 Plaintiff 101 books that are purchased tomorrow evening at $10 each, which reflects a savings of 60%, you'll also receive a Macy's shopping pass, good for 30% off. So, simply stated, Plaintiff 101 is a must-read for every driver. All sales benefit charity. I wish you all, and you and your loved ones, the very best, and a happy, healthy, and long, beautiful life. Enjoy your journey and fulfill your destiny. Thank you.